is yours? Oh,
All right.
okay.
And we'll start the meeting, as always, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So our first order of business tonight is we are going to hold a public hearing, which is required by law in order for us to expend funds from the trust funds that the school district keeps for long-term capital items. So do I read this first? You read this? Okay. All right, so to open the meeting. To the inhabitants of the town of Newmarket, you are hereby notified that pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 198:20C, the Newmarket School. And with that, do we have any? Yep, we will open the public hearing for any public comment. Going once, going twice. All right, we'll close the public hearing then at 5:17 p.m. Hearing no opposition to the board expending those funds from the trust funds. Thank you. All right, so now we need to vote on the request as an action item, but that'll come later in the agenda. Before I get started with the normal agenda, I did want to let the board know we are going to have representatives of the top 10 students of the graduating class here tonight, but as you can see, they are not present yet. So with the board's agreement, I'll probably slide that discussion point down the agenda until we have the students here.
Yep. So busy getting scholarships.
Oh, nice.
Scholarship night over at SS.
Yes.
Awesome.
Good for them. Better than being here. All right, so we will move on to public comment. We invite members of the public to offer comments up to 3 minutes on agenda items. Open at 5:18 p.m. We know you, but if you'll just state your
Hello.
name and address for the record.
Yeah, my name is Jeff Boyd. I'm a member of the community from Mead Hill. I was also at our school's chorus concert last night. I got a chance to see at least the first installment of that, and the kids did a phenomenal job. I did have a concern that I just wanted to raise before the board.
Can I ask a point of order?
Yes.
Unless it's an item on the agenda, the public isn't permitted to comment. We can, of course, waive that policy, but.
All right, do the members of the board have an objection to, I mean, if anybody has an objection to this, are we all right with it?
We are setting a precedent for the rest of the term, but.
Yeah. All right, please go on.
Okay. The concern I have is that immediately at the start of the night, there was a loud pop and a little bit of a dust cloud that sort of erupted. We didn't know what it was at the time. It came from the sisters would end up sitting in the area where I learned the noise came from, and I know now that they were sitting likely in broken glass. More to come on that a little bit later. Later on, during a special performance, the lights were dimmed and the black lights were illuminated while the kids wore white gloves. It turns out there were a total of 6 fluorescent black lights that were installed behind the heels of the children in the risers, and the lights were to make their gloves glow. The effect was, and they informed me that the kids just needed to be allowed to finish their show. Afterward, they would have the area cleaned. I told them that seemed unacceptable because they were exposing everyone around the area to potential health risk, and it was easily avoidable by evacuating people right now. They told me I was welcome to remove my child, which I did. While waiting for my feeling that this disaster was essentially like predestined from the moment that they stepped up on those risers. One additional final note is multiple performers reported symptoms of mercury exposure afterward, including metallic stains in mouth, nauseousness, and headaches. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Hi, my name is Heather Matata Boyd. I am a community member, librarian, and mom, and I was here for last night's performance. When I came in, All of the students came in through the middle here, went off to the risers. Within a few minutes, we heard a loud pop. And I could see glass all over the floor. And I had said, something's glass, something's broken. Maria went over, took a look at it, made a glib comment.
I'm sorry, could we please not refer to individuals by name?
Sure.
Thank you.
The instructor that was conducting looked at it, made a glib comment about, oh, we started our show with a bang and kept going. At this point, I wasn't sure what it was. While I was looking for another adult person to supervise this area and hopefully get some help and make sure that the kids were not being exposed to things that are harmful to their health, my husband showed the director what sort of things happen with these bulbs and all of that. They continued on. This went on for about 45 minutes before we were able to get our daughter out of here. And when we did get our daughter out of here, I went ahead and I wrote a letter. All of you have had a letter on the board, as well as the superintendent and the principal of the school. One of the board members did get back to me this morning. I appreciate that very much, hearing the response. Thank you. And I was also told that the principal was going to send out an email. That email went out to everyone. I've talked to a few other parents. Part of it says, at last night's spring concert, fluorescent black lighting was used during one of the chorus songs. During the show, a few of the bulbs that were positioned under the risers were broken. All fluorescent light bulbs are considered universal hazardous waste due to low levels of mercury being released when they break. Clearly, exposure to mercury is unhealthy and should be avoided. As a result of the incident at the concert last night, the following steps have been taken to ensure everyone's safety and to make sure that we learn from the experience to prevent any future incidents involving hazardous materials. For one, it says an intermission was taken at the end of the choral portion of the concert to allow for immediate cleanup. It's not just me. There are several other people that when they got this said, well, immediate cleanup. It was 45 minutes into it and they had already continued with the concert.
4 minutes. I mean, I appreciate feedback from the public, but maybe we could.
I can wrap it up
decide.
very quickly.
Thank you.
We talked to the board director. She did not handle the situation. Literally all that needed to happen was to say, we have some technical difficulties. Can everyone move into the lobby while we take care of this? And then they could get back to it, and that would have been fine. Instead, there were multiple girls that were sitting in glass multiple times, and it was not taken care of appropriately, and I'm a little upset about that.
Thank you. Any other members of the public?
Yes, and this is one of the choral performers from last night.
I do have to ask, are you 18?
Oh, what did you say?
Are you 18 years old? Please go ahead, but please be brief if you would.
Okay. It sounds like you've heard the story of what happened that night twice, so I'm just going to skip ahead a little bit to what happened after. So I got to school the next day, and I accidentally left my phone in the room, so I didn't have any communication with any of the other choral performers to hear about what happened after. But I did have a meeting scheduled in the morning with my principal, and we talked about it, but I felt like throughout this whole situation, everyone had been ignoring the fact that it was a health and safety risk for people to be exposed to mercury. It's like people kept telling me, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to refer to anyone by names. Kept being told we just wanted to get through the song, and you guys have been working so hard. And I completely understand that, but it's like if there was a fire in here, we'd evacuate. It's just because this particular threat was invisible and odorless does not mean that we should just ignore it. So past this a little bit more, I'm talking to some of the kids at the chorus concert, who were at the chorus concert, and so far everyone I've talked to has told me they've at the very least had a metallic taste in their mouth after the performance, which is a sign of mercury. exposure. And there was one girl that told me she had literally all of the symptoms that were listed on like the Google AI generated brief thing that they have. And I just feel like everyone that and then I talked to Miss Isaac and she told me this has already been handled. I don't understand why we're bringing it up again, but it was in a very rude and dismissive tone. And I just am having trouble understanding why everyone I've tried to talk to in this situation has tried to dismiss it as something less serious than it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Any other public comment this evening? All right, with that, we'll close public comment at 5:30. Public correspondence. Has anyone on the board received any?
Just the correspondence was forwarded from the superintendent.
Thank you. I did also want to mention that the folks who, Todd, please help me, I can't remember the organization that is working to influence the legislature on the state budget.
The New Hampshire Fair Funding Project?
The New Hampshire Fair Funding Project, apologies to them, did reach out again and wanted to thank us for signing on to their letter, and also wanted to know if the board wanted to participate beyond that in their the efforts that they're making to attempt to convince the state legislature and the governor to reverse some of the funding priorities that we've seen in the initial state budget. I didn't forward the letter to the rest of the board because it wasn't particularly detailed, other than just wanting to know if we had an interest in continuing to participate. I would assume they plan to coordinate further efforts. So I'm not really looking for a decision from the board right now. Just, I'll keep everybody apprised if they reach out with specific things. Kathy?
So would this be part of the demonstration, their presentation that they've been doing around the state to various different communities? Because I know that, I know they went to Franklin, and I think they went up to Kearsarge. I'm not sure where they might have been around here. But they have, I do know someone that attended and said it was informative.
I don't believe they mentioned that specifically in the email that I received. I can certainly
But that
follow
might
up.
be, if you want to do more.
Yep.
And if I could note, we have tentatively committed to being involved in a longer-term study that they're doing to analyze school
Fair
funding
funding?
over time. So, yeah,
Oh,
so
good.
they've asked us, they've agreed to not bother us until after audit season, but we are, probably sometime this summer, we'll be collecting information for them.
All right, so if everybody's amenable, I'll just write them, a nice reply. Thank you for reaching out. And if you, have specific programming that you're presenting for public board meetings, if you could kind of send us a sample of what you're doing, I'll reach out to the board members and see if there's an interest in having that. Does that sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, I'll follow up with them then. Any other public correspondence? All right, thank you. Committee updates.
I do have a couple items. So under board comments, if I can squeeze it in there as well.
Okay, sorry.
I just wanted to commend our last member of the public for being so composed and eloquent. Speaking, I still have trouble speaking in front of the public, so I was just very impressed, and hopefully she'll hear that.
Yeah, thank you for saying that.
She was very composed.
Yeah, and again, for someone that age, I'd say rather brave too, so, yes.
And she was very cognizant of trying not to use any person's names, which was appreciated.
Very much so. All right, any other board comments or?
Updates?
Committee
Oh,
updates.
sorry,
Yeah.
thank you. I forgot that part,
Yep.
the second part. So we had a growth and evaluation, teacher growth and evaluation committee meeting today. We're very close to finishing up the board's role. We have one more meeting, I believe, and then the board's component will kind of be finished, and they'll continue on with presentations to the public, or excuse me, to their members, as well as implementation details and training. So it's been a really great experience, and appreciate them inviting us.
Thank you.
I did have the opportunity to join the SLC Board of Trustees meeting last week.
Just the acronym for the public?
Hang on. Seacoast Learning Collaborative?
Oh.
Student, Seacoast. Seacoast, yeah. Okay, I had it. And I was just saying to Todd that it was really quite fascinating opportunity just to see all the work that's put into helping students who may not, who are not in the public schools that we have here. And we discussed what to do with some additional funds that were unexpected, and voted on distributing a certain amount of that back to employees who had been employed there for several years, and talked about some of the transportation, some of the vehicles with quite a few hundred miles on them, and voted on permission to use some of the extra funds, again, to purchase vehicles that would be support for student transportation to places like Camp Mira Vista and other trips that the students go to. So it was really, I was pleasantly surprised to be at such a interesting meeting that maybe I wouldn't have had an opportunity to otherwise. So
Thank you for being here.
yeah.
Thank you. You want to hit policy?
Sure, yeah. We had a policy meeting, or I'm sorry, let me start on budget committee, because we had one of those first, I think.
Okay.
And at the budget committee, we went over the Q3 financial report for the town of Newmarket. Where we're at right now, we're about 3/4 of the way through the fiscal year. General fund expenditures, we're at 72%, or $7,484,000. Their total operating budget spending is at 74%, which total on that's $12,767,000. And as they made it clear, is tradition. 95% of our revenues have already been accrued. Much of that, I think, was in Q1, it looked like from the charts. But we've accrued over 37 million, 37.6 million, it looks like. There was also the Q3 report from the school, which Jan has been informing us about along the way, so I won't trouble anybody too much with that. And we elected a new capital improvement plan representative. Her name's Chris Blackstone.
Okay. And you had quorum for this meeting?
Yeah, barely, I think.
Awesome.
It was light.
6 people there, there's 11, yeah, one more.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was tight, but
And that's not to throw shade at anybody, just it's nice that the budget committee is getting going again, so.
yeah, it got light. But one point they were clear to make on the town side of the budget was that they're running a very tight ship this year. That they've really nailed in, exactly what they want to pull in for revenue and what they want to spend, and I think they've been, it sounds like, doing really well with that.
Sounds good. Do you want to go over policy? You want me to?
Go for it.
Oh, okay. The policy committee met earlier today before this meeting, so there are 2 policies we'll be bringing to the board at our next meeting on June 5th. One of them has to do with participation in extracurricular activities. The other is a very lengthy policy on document retention and information retention policies that I think I speak for the policy committee that we're extremely happy to defer to the experts on what that should say, and we'll probably bring it to the board without edit or amendment.
About as dry as well-kindled lumber, I think.
Yes,
Killed.
yes, we are custodians of an incredible amount of information. So that,
Yeah, I made it to this month's planning meeting.
awesome,
The subdivision.
Yep.
The subcommittee. There was no quorum,
okay.
but we had a presentation by the Stratford Regional Planning Committee. That's a capital improvement plan that's been going on, I guess, for at least a year from what I gathered. And This was their presentation for the economic development of Newmarket. So it's,
A bit of light reading.
yes, it was requested that maybe get it down to 13 pages. But it was a very thorough presentation, and I learned a lot. Now, being a newer member of this, they want to focus on trying to get out of developing beyond the main downtown and going around. So if anybody would like to bring home a little reading for their evening, I have this I can share.
Yeah,
There-
sure, Dan and Lonnie read it, you can,
Okay, I'll pass it around. I'll have a little checkout.
and Olivia.
And then there was a review of the energy chapter, which is trying, of course, to figure out the best way to utilize our resources as far as energy goes. I was surprised about the use of propane, how the schools use propane, and they would like to get natural gas in here if they could, but they're not sure if that's going to happen. They also had some discussion about solar panels going around, and I'm sure that that might have been,
Yeah, we've looked into solar panels in the past.
Yeah.
and
yeah,
the Building
yeah, so.
person can talk about.
So they're winding down. There was also a final discussion on the land, water, and conservation and resource chapters. They figure that they'll probably be done this whole thing by June, having a final copy to be presented to the town. They hope to be done by the end of June. So that's,
Dan, do you know how far away the nearest, I'm not going to pick on you, but the nearest LNG line is?
The natural gas pipeline?
There's one in Greenland. apparently, or else.
So I have
Stratum.
a friend and former colleague who works at Unitil, and I harass her on semi-regular intervals about the fact that there's natural gas service to the south of us and to the north of us, but not here or in Newfields.
Does Durham have it? Does
Yeah, Durham does.
Oh, did it?
UNH is
Yeah.
one of the biggest users in the state, actually, other than power plants.
Be an expensive line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but population density is the real issue, and
that
the fact
makes
that Newmarket doesn't have what you'd call an anchor tenant. We don't have any large industrial end users, which, somewhat by design, that's just not the character of the town, but it
Yeah.
makes us a little unappealing to a gas distribution utility.
That makes sense.
so it was interesting. I learned a lot.
Good.
And I could probably, if I went back and read my notes, I read this, I could tell you more. I mean, I did read it. And then we had the SST meeting too.
Oh, how did that go? Anything of note, or?
Well, probably Todd can give a little more because he's got more background.
Yeah, I mean, we looked at enrollment reports for next year. Looks like there are going to be 58 kids from Newmarket going to SST next year, which is a little bit lower than it has been in recent years. And then we also looked at some potential tuition costs based upon
Some of the enrollment figures.
a variety of calculations. Right now, SST's numbers are in pretty good shape. They're well ahead of where they were last year, but typically there's a drop from now until the start of school, so we won't get our rate set until all of that happens, but certainly it's looking like our tuition rate will
That's
be
the
somewhere in the ballpark of
enrollment.
$4,000, probably a little north of that per student. And then the other thing they talked about was there's been a lot of discussion about adding a program at SST, the electrical.
Engineering, electrical.
And so we agreed as a group to do a deep dive into that for next year.
All right. Is that all we have for committees?
For now.
For now, absolutely. Olivia, I feel like we've kept you here for ages and ages, so
Yeah, that's
so
okay.
please tear into the student report.
Yeah, so softball had a doubleheader yesterday against Wilton. So their first game they won 22-6, and then their senior night was also during those games. So that happened in between the two games as a little break. And then the second game they won 12-4. Friday's home game against Pittsfield got rescheduled to Monday, so they will have another doubleheader at home. and that'll be Monday. Then baseball won 12-0 against Wilton, and their last regular season game is next Tuesday against Newt, home at 4, which will be their senior night. Track has had a lot of meets recently, so last Saturday they attended the Bobcat Invitational. Elise set a school record in the 3200 and Lydia in the triple jump. Monday they attended the Sanborn meet, and then tomorrow they have Seacoast Championships, which will help them prepare for states on the 31st. As for some clubs, SALT got a subcommittee together and they met last week to go over the athletic contract and see if there are any changes they wanted to propose. Newmarket did win rivalry week, so we do get the cutback from Epping, and we have a meal of the month, but it hasn't been announced yet. And then for June 9th, SALT will be helping with elementary school field day. And then signups for SALT next year were due last week, and we have 8 new members joining. As for Interact, tomorrow's Newmarket Cares Day, and then student council, student government and like council campaigns have been currently happening, and that'll happen next week, all the speeches. And then today, student council planned a little scavenger hunt for high school students to participate in, and cupcakes were awarded to those who completed it. As for just some other stuff, prom was last Friday and was lots of fun. Chorus concert was last night. Senior week is in 2 weeks. Senior's last day is the 30th, and then June 13th, I believe, for the rest of the school. Senior banquet is June 3rd at Hackmatack Farm and Playhouse in Berwick, Maine, and then graduation's the 6th. That's all I got.
So is there an alternate date for Newmarket Cares Day, or are we assigning people
It's
personal
happening, rain or
flotation
shine.
devices?
No, it'll happen no matter what, unless there's lightning.
Interesting.
I'm going to be bringing some
Some people go to the
blankets.
Pines, that would be dry.
Yes, some people also like clean up the graveyard. That will not be true. Okay, thank you, Olivia. Questions?
I totally forgot one thing, but I guess I could piggyback on Olivia's update. That Turtle Fest was last weekend, and my kids went, speaking of rain or shine, good that they have the signs that fold, and that's so that when they are up during the season, people like notice them more. And there's certain ways that you're supposed to pick up turtles, different kinds of turtles. I've been doing it correctly. Pat myself on the back. And then the union leader was here, so I know that some of the presenters were quoted in there. My son also was quoted, but it was really fascinating, and I wouldn't have even known about it. And the students from Net Zero, I believe it was, were out there answering questions for kids and adults. It was great.
Fantastic, thank you. How about a superintendent report?
I want to apologize because, thank you, Tim, my mic was muted earlier, so can you hear me now? Excellent, okay, it's on, excellent. So I did want to start by just commenting, Olivia, I noticed when you said seniors' last day is the 30th, and you think everybody else ends on the 30th. It's like you don't care. She's very aware of senior day.
You were correct, though.
It's so strange, Sean was the same way last year. Why does that happen?
So I've had the privilege the last 2 weeks of attending 3 concerts. I did the elementary school concert last 14th, I think it was. You were there. No, you were. Okay, the 14th. The 14th.
I was not there.
And then I did the 2 let's see, the middle school concert on the 20th, and then last night was the chorus and band concert. I do want to just take a moment to say just how spectacular all 3 concerts were. Commend all of our kids and the adults that make that happen. It's really wonderful to see. In particular, I just want to comment on Tuesday night. Patty Wands and I were here, and they had the 6th grade band performed, and it's big. It's a large group. I think there's got to be 35 kids in the 6th grade band when you figure there's only like 70-something kids in the whole grade.
That's wonderful.
And we were standing there watching it, and it was great. We thought, wow, these kids are so good. And then we turned like, wait a minute, there's a whole other band sitting back here, and that was the 7th, 8th grade band. So we thought it had been a joint band, and then we realized, oh my goodness, how this program has grown. So there's really a lot of kids. It was just spectacular performance. The The musicianship was just wonderful. And then last night, I speak very highly of the performance of the choral kids. They did an amazing job, as did the high school band, just an incredible performance. Obviously, I want to acknowledge that something occurred last night that was very undesirable. I did send out a communication to families from the band and the chorus groups that were there. Clearly, as has been alluded to in some of the public comments, there was an issue with fluorescent light bulbs that were popped, is the best way to describe it, during the concert. Clearly, what happened was undesirable, and we need to do everything we can to make that not happen again. Starting with evaluating whether we should have fluorescent lighting to begin with, when there are LED options, that's certainly one thing, but then also making sure everybody has the right training and knowledge, background to make sure that when something happens, we react appropriately. There's no question, I think, that the reaction was not as fast as it should have been, and I will acknowledge that. But we're trying to make sure we learn from it and do the right thing. So I'd leave it at that. Moving on to other topics. I do want to just comment, I want to congratulate our teachers, particularly our 3 through 8 teachers, for getting through SAS testing. Immediately, I just want to say the results are great. And I'm really looking forward to having Patty come forward. Probably won't be until July when all the results are official, but there's definitely a lot of growth happening. I think we should be really proud of our kids. On that same note, Andy shared with me a report of the SAT scores for our juniors, excuse me. Well above state average, performed extremely well. I think the average, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, 1,058 was the average score for our kids. Yeah, just for benefit, my score was not, when I did them way back when, it was less than 1,058. I'm just not going to give the exact number, but I do remember my number, as most kids do, so that we did very well. And I also commend all the kids who did AP testing over the month of May. 83 AP tests taken. And just to remind you, last year, Newmarket High School was named the 10th best high school in the state. A lot of it was on the strength of the rigor and the academics for that. Speaking of things to be proud of, Patty Wands submitted a proposal that she and a group of teachers are going to, they proposed a presentation at the Aurora Institute in New Orleans next fall, and they were accepted. And for those who don't know, Aurora is the sort of the competency-based learning sort of institute of America, and certainly being respected and seen as doing what you're supposed to do through them is a big deal. So Patty and Amy Beth Taylor, Erica McNeil, and I believe there's one other teacher who I probably have dropped the ball on, but it's a group of them going down. They're going to be doing a presentation called Bridging Growth, Aligning a Teacher-Mentor Program with Competency-Based Learning Principles. And it all ties into the work that you guys have been involved in. So very exciting to see that. And then, this is not a very exciting thing, but I just wanted to make sure to mention it because it was on my mind when I was writing my notes. Starting June 5th, our board meetings will be in the library because it's air conditioned, just so you know. So for the summer, we will be in the library where there's air conditioning. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
I was just going to say, interesting reaction when you mentioned the good SAS scores. The only student in the crowd gave us a, huh? What? We did? So yes, you all did better than you thought.
SAS was 3 through 8, so he didn't have to do SAS.
Oh, okay. There
No.
we go.
It's the SAT.
It's exciting.
He's one of the SAT people that I was just talking about.
Yep. Questions for Todd?
An observation, suggestion. It sounds like, yeah, it was really kind of an unfortunate and unforeseen thing at the concert. Unfortunately, things like that we don't learn from until they happen usually. So I'm wondering if that's an opportunity for the facilities director to maybe take a look around and see if there's other kind of things that we're just used to seeing every day and we really take for granted that might have some hazardous implications.
Yeah, for the record, all of our lights have been switched over to LED. The lights that were used in that show, frankly have not been used at any point in the last 5 years, so until they were pulled out, I don't think anybody knew they even existed. But there are LED options for black lighting, so there's no
Even
question.
beyond that, right? So I mean, there could be cleaners or
Correct.
paints
Yeah.
or
Sure.
anything. We're just so used to seeing that we don't think of.
I would say we happen to have a facilities director, Dave Riley, who is on top of stuff like that. He's constantly monitoring what's best practice. So I don't want to speak for him because I can't promise you that he's done it, but I guarantee he's very aware of it. And but yeah, it is an opportunity for us to learn from, no question.
One more thing upcoming. Tomorrow is the Wax Museum for 4th grade. So if you are interested in learning about any historical figures, there's quite the array. And it was supposed to be this afternoon outside. Fortunately, they decided to postpone to tomorrow in the gym. So it will be dry, rain or shine. And it's 1:40 to 2:40.
Excellent, thank you.
Do you have a participant?
I do.
All right, we did, as I mentioned earlier, had at the top of our discussion items recognizing our top 10 students. I'm beginning to wonder if we're the victims of an elaborate senior prank at the
They were
moment.
told not to show up till 6:30.
Oh,
And it was
okay.
in communication, so.
All right, all right. So,
I know they said they're going to be around 6:30.
That's what I heard.
thank you. We can confirm from multiple points here. So we'll move that lower on the list of discussion items. Fortunately, to save us, we have Mark Levitt, who recently...
No pressure.
Mark, you need to save us.
Mark recently returned from the British Isles with a group of our students. To the best of my knowledge, all of them came back with all of their fingers and toes, so
Did we bring them all back? Yeah, I think we
highly successful, and Mark's
the
gonna...
same number back that you left with.
That's true, that's all that matters.
I pointed out to him that the permission slip, we gave him permission to take them away. I didn't sign anything that said he could bring them back. He took that upon himself, so thank you, Mark.
That was a very common conversation topic amongst a lot of the adults. Yeah. Well, thank you. And for those of you that don't know who I am, I'm Mark Levitt, 7th grade social studies teacher. Been here about 30 years. Yeah, 30. So we decided to restart our trips, and we were very successful, which was nice because last year they did Germany and some other location. This year, we went to Scotland and Ireland through EF Tours, which is probably as old as I am, if not older. I used them when I was in high school, so I was very familiar with them. So that's why I kind of chose them as our platform. And they, once again, they did a great job, a really good job. I do want to recognize a couple of things to the group, and I only have one representative of the group. They were a great, attentive crowd. They were spot on. Always on time. It was awesome. They dealt with that whole, travel kind of like, very well. Never really heard any outward complaints. It was awesome. And just generally a great group of kids to travel with. I mean, oh my goodness. You guys
Were you on
awesome.
Snapchat? Because that's probably where all the comments.
I purposely didn't look
Yeah,
because I was
smart.
worried. Yeah. It's like, oh my God. And chaperones, I have one in the crowd. I couldn't have done it without them. They were very instrumental in keeping me sane, and also at the same time and kind of enjoying the trip as well. Basic feedback, we had a lot of kids engaging conversations with me, but also with themselves on a more mature adult level. It was great to watch and participate in. So it's like, wow. And a couple of them made the comment of, Mr. Levitt, you never talk like that. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just talking to you as a real person. And they're like, oh. So that was really good. And, student feedback on just enjoying it. The food sometimes was a complaint, but not too bad. And they all had
I heard
said,
a lot of meat and potatoes.
Yes. And unfortunately, one restaurant was fish and chips. And they got a lot of criticism. But we did have a great time. And a lot of them said, yeah, we'd definitely go back again. So that's good. not with me necessarily, but they would go back again, so that was good. But I do have some pictures I'd like to share with you. So let's see if I can make this work. Oh, there we go. So we started out all smiles. Everybody's happy. It's raining. We're going to get on an airplane, so yay. And then, of course, when we get there, somebody decides to break out in music because he's so happy that he's going on a trip. This is in the middle of Logan, by the way, as we get through TSA. Ta-da! It just goes on repeat. We got there safely. They are awake in this picture, although some of them I think were snoozing. We finally made it after that long stop in Iceland. Yeah, we had to do a layover in Iceland, which was kind of cool. Not very long, but it did kind of disrupt our sleep patterns a little bit. So. And our bus driver, who got us around for half the trip, very instrumental in making sure that we were on time to our different things. But notice the smiles. We had fed them breakfast, so I think they were happy with that. Here we are at St. Patrick's. There's a handful here that we got together, took a picture with the steeple in the background. We couldn't avoid the beach. We went to dinner one night, had some time left over, so we said, hey, bus driver, drop us off and we'll walk home. And we did. We walked toward the hill and then took a sharp right to avoid the hill and then walked back to our hotel. So we walked off dinner along the beach and it was a great time. It was a good time. It was good to see them playing around there in the sand.
Where was this?
This was outside Dublin.
Okay.
This is going to be the town of, what was it? Oh, I can't remember either.
That's okay.
Yeah, if you find Dublin, it's a coastal town just south of it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny, I can't remember it. But it was a pretty little town. And we got to do some graffiti. I know, take kids on a trip and graffiti, you wouldn't think that would happen. This here is the wall that separates Protestants and Catholics in Belfast. It was slated to come down, but they've left it up, and they've extended it, unfortunately, higher. But it's been this attraction for decades for people to sign the wall. And what was awesome is our tour guide, Joe, did a great job of explaining his experience growing up through the Troubles. And you could see some of the kids were like, whoa, that's impressive. So evidence that we are graffiti artists, but minimal. Oh, there's one right there. Sorry. Just to prove we got to write on the wall. And we went to the Titanic Museum where they built the Titanic. Had a good time inside there. So this is the tail end of our Belfast trip before we were going to ship out and go to Scotland. We tried to fill all the letters. I think we did a pretty good job, or they did. Once again, we could not avoid the ocean. So within about an hour of our bus ride into Scotland, we pulled over for a little snack, and then a bunch of them rushed down to the tide pools. And had a good time trying to stay dry. And we got to, eat a lot and drink a lot. So the common favorite drink was a Scottish soda called Iron Brew. Yeah. Yeah, what? No. Oh, that's right, yeah. So, the students in the picture, they loved it. And they would always buy a bunch, like 6 packs worth, and I'm like, oh my God. Imagine Mountain Dew, but worse. Worse in taste and what it would do to you. You can buy it around here locally if you go to like the Irish store. Is it Irish store or British Isle store or somewhere nearby? So if you want to try that. We get to cross famous bridges like the Stirling Bridge. A bunch of us down there in front of Stirling Bridge. This is a big site for Scottish history. And we joined a friend of mine who I went to uni with, Simon. I'm going to name him because he wouldn't mind. He'd love that. Simon and I had gone to university together when I did my exchange, and he heard we were coming, and he's like, when are you going to be there? And so he joined us in the city of Edinburgh and had a great time. And I got to share his remarks. He was so impressed with our students. He's like, these guys are great. You sure they're yours? I'm like, yes, yes they are. So I had to show his picture and then make sure that you heard his comments about your students. He was so impressed with them. And then Edinburgh Castle. The weather was incredible. Yeah, we were expecting what you're hearing in the roof right now, and we got that every single day. It was, yeah, just incredible. And the group of boys trying not to roll down the hill. A couple of them did. Walking, we did a lot of walking. We had a competition for steps. Speaking of which, how many do you have? Okay. We were clocking like 10 to 15,000 steps per day, and it became a great competition between adults and students. So if we could, we walked it. So we were walking a couple of miles from dinner to find something. I forget what it was we were looking for in this picture. Yes. Should I tell them? We have a witch. So for those of you that are Monty Python fans, one of our chaperones, who shall remain nameless, was identified as a witch for our tours, our Spectre tours of Scotland. She graciously volunteered to be the example and did a wonderful job of it. Thank you. Kids loved our tour guide for these ghost stories of Edinburgh. Some of us tried to crawl into the castles. So we were graffiti artists and also wall climbers. The group again, all happy smiles. We didn't have to force it. They were all happy campers, which was really, really nice. Stirling Castle, again, the weather just, it was awesome. I have to say, I haven't traveled with a group that has been so easy. You know, whenever you travel with students, whether it's a field trip or whatever, you're always worried about all kinds of stuff, and your anxiety kind of bubbles to the surface. And within the first day, it was gone. I knew I had a great group of kids, and they were awesome. They really made the trip. A couple more kids there, happy kids. They were happy about castles. This is awesome. Oh, we saw it was supposed to be sheep, but it was ducks. Yes. So this woman does a show where she uses her collie to herd different animals. So we learned about different sheep of Scotland, but at the same time, she showed us how good her dog in training was with herding ducks. And it was pretty fun. Our tour guide provided by EF, this is Richard. He was indispensable, so helpful. He was the one that made all the arrangements, called ahead, and got us there. As you can tell, the two other adults in the picture there, myself included, are happy. And this is Lake Katrine, or Loch Katrine, right up on the edge of, you're starting to go into the highlands there. And some of us wanted to kiss coos. Now I say coo, not a cow, because that's, in Scotland, is a coo. Do not call it a cow. They don't like that. So these are your Scottish Highland animals, and very friendly. I don't think he got stopped, but he might have. And then we got to leave and enter airplanes through the back door. Who gets to do that, right? So we had a great trip. It was awesome. I can't say more, but I would like to invite a couple people if they would be willing to say a few words, because I think you should hear from them, not so much from me. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Cameron. I'm a junior. I got to go on this trip. So first thing I just want to say is a big thank you to Mr. Levitt, who helped us and all the chaperones. So your wife, Ms. Bro, and Miss Skelly Doloff, the younger one. So to start, the whole trip, I feel like it went as smooth as possible. I mean, even going through airports where like you have to go through security, everything went smooth. And obviously part of that's luck, but I feel like having Mr. Levitt and all of them coordinating stuff really quick and easy. Continuing on, airplanes and stuff, obviously that sucks, but when you get like your first night of sleep, you start feeling better over there. And the biggest thing I was thinking in my head the whole time I was over there is pretty much how similar I felt like it was in Ireland as it was over here. And the one way I could describe it is that New Hampshire is like Ireland, but it has trees. Because we were over there, and they've like sheep pastures and cow pastures everywhere you look. All over here, we just have trees. So it really felt kind of similar to home. And again, we were really blessed with the weather. We didn't have one day where it was cold or rainy. It felt like every day was sunny and partly cloudy and warm. So I don't remember our exact itinerary, but I remember we landed in Dublin, and over the whole trip we went through 5 big cities, I'd say. So we started our trip in Dublin, which was one of my favorite cities. It's very much like, the way I'd say it is like Boston, but there's no skyscrapers, and it's just a very, very nice city, I'd say. And we spent a whole bunch of time, we saw the Immigration Museum in Dublin, and we learned a lot about how, I'm pretty sure the majority of us, not everybody, has some sort of Irish ancestry. And just one fact I remember is how Ireland lost over half its population just to immigrants leaving towards either the US or other parts of Europe because of multiple factors like the potato famine and other stuff. And that was really interesting to learn. One thing I remember is we were walking down this big bustling street where you have like thousands of people walking around the stores. And at the very end of it, there was this massive, massive obelisk-looking tower that we were walking towards. And that's just one great thing I remember, is walking down that street, walking through all the stores. It was really fun. So then our second city after that, we took a bus ride. We went to Belfast, which is up in Northern Ireland. So it's crossing over a new country, basically, because you go from the Republic of Ireland to the United Kingdom. And Belfast was one of my less favorite cities, just because it's a lot different up there. And like Mr. Levitt mentioned, we had a tour guide, Joe, who told us all about how he grew up in the Troubles. And just in case any of you are unaware, similar to like just an insurgency almost in Northern Ireland, where you have the Republican nationalists fighting against the loyalists who were loyal to the British Crown. And it was kind of surreal driving through that city and seeing walls that are 30, 40 feet tall, separating neighborhoods just based off if you're a Catholic or a Protestant. And I remember one story that our tour guide Joe told us is how he was laying in his home, talking about a bottle of medicine his mom used to make him take when he felt sick, and suddenly bullets start flying through his window, and he lies on the ground. And he remembered one thing, he was wishing that they'd shoot the medicine bottle on the windowsill so he wouldn't have to take it anymore. And that didn't happen, but after that, British soldiers, they ran into his house. And then his father was like, "Why are you shooting at our house?" And he was like, the soldiers just shrugged, and then they walked out and left. So, and the crazy part is that only happened around 30 years ago. So, well within most of our lifetimes. So, it's just really going to that city and seeing how so recently you had a conflict such like that, and how, first of all, how well recovered, going to downtown, seeing people everywhere, not caring whether if you're a Protestant or Catholic. It really was sort of like a humbling experience in a way. So I'll continue on. So after that, left Belfast. We took a ferry over towards Glasgow, or not Glasgow, but that's where we went after the ferry. And I remember the ferry. So you go on this ship, and you're thinking, oh, we're going on this small little ferry, like imagine going like Nova Scotia from Maine. And but we were on this thing the size of a cruise ship, it felt like. There's multiple floors, there's like viewing decks and restaurants, and it was really, and a casino. The casino. There's stores, you can buy cologne and stuff. So then, that was pretty fun. And when we were leaving, I remember we saw cars driving off. I was like, I didn't realize this was a car carrier. So it's really interesting. The boats, like, They're so fast and massive over there. And then after that, we got another bus and drove over to Glasgow, which is our third city of the trip. And Glasgow is a very similar, I feel like, to Dublin in a way. But what we did in Glasgow, other than walking around, in my opinion, it's my favorite city I went on the trip because it has very interesting, I feel like Roman-style architecture in some parts of downtown, where we have very, very large, like, pillars and buildings, and it was very, very fun to walk around for a whole day. I don't quite remember exactly what we did over there. So, yeah, there's a lot of food. Speaking on the food, Mr. Levitt mentioned the fish and chip store that you went to, which was the worst food on the trip. And, you know, I always hear about, you know, British fish and chips, you know, way better than what we have over here, but that was not my experience. And also, the biggest thing I missed going over there was American food, crazy enough. Because I remember our first trip there, the first meal on our menu was beef stew. And I got lucky because they ran out, so we would have roast beef instead. So that was great. But then the next day you'd have beef and potatoes, and then the next day you'd have like just continuing different variations of potatoes and beef. So, and then we also tried American or British McDonald's over there, which honestly was getting worse. So that's one thing I was grateful for, coming back and having American food for the first time after. So after we were in Glasgow, we took one last long bus ride to Edinburgh, which is one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been to in my life. You walk in and suddenly you see you have castle walls and you have buildings that are 1,000 years old just everywhere. And I remember walking up the Royal Mile, they call it, which is that long street winding up towards the citadel of the castle, just seeing so many things that are centuries older than our country. Even like the oldest thing in North America, you have stuff way older than that. Like there's a pub that was established in 900 AD, still running to the day. So that's another crazy experience I had going over there and seeing stuff, you know, 500, 600, 700 years older than the oldest thing we have over here. We go to Boston and see a building in 1700, think, wow, that's old. It's nothing compared to some of the stuff they have over there. So that was another really interesting thing. And then we got to tour the castle itself, which is, we toured two castles. So Edinburgh Castle and Stirling Castle, both of which are unique in their own ways. But I thought it was interesting how you have the castle up on the hill, and then you think back 1,000 years ago, some lord would have been living in that castle, and everything he could see from that castle was his, or hers, if it was a queen. So it was just so much cool history. We got to just go into like the queen's bedroom and see where they would have lived. And there was like, I have a video, but there's a jester playing a lyre, I think, like the weird stringed instrument. And it was just really surreal walking through there, but it was really fun. Last few things, the hotels. I think last year they had it a bit better with the hotels, just from what I've heard. But this year, you know, it was 4 or 3 to a room most nights, which was fine because all of us most of the time had our own bed. But I remember our first night in Dublin, we had 4 people in 3 beds, so we had to improvise. And most of it just came out of seniority. Like the youngest person in the room had to sleep in the bed with someone else. But other than that, it was really fun going to those hotels, and I feel like you have a lot of responsibility over there. You know, most trips you feel like you have to be cooped up with like a chaperone. But on our lunchtime, we sometimes had 3 or 4 hours on some days, or 1 hour on other days, to wander around the city in groups of people, not by yourself, but in groups, to do really whatever you could in that time. So that's another great part of these trips, I feel like, is you get to gain a big sense of personal responsibility with like your money. Make sure you don't spend all your money too quick, or getting something to eat, or doing something you want to do, not being stuck to a schedule all the time. And that's a great part of this trip. Last 2 things, coming home was pretty much about as seamless as going there. You know, everyone's freaking out about customs. We just installed that app on our phone that we didn't even have to use. But it was just simple, show your passport, and they all let us through. I think one person let their bags through, just Sophia. And then take the bus home. That was also kind of stressful, but we got on the right bus. So then we get back to Portsmouth, and that's that. So that's really all I have to say about the trip. But it was probably one of the most memorable and I think fun experience I'll ever have in my life. I certainly hope, I know next year they're going to London and Paris, which I can't imagine how that's going to be. I'm kind of happy we didn't go to England, honestly, and saw other parts of the UK, but I think it's going to be a fun trip next year, and I hope in the coming years they have more trips like this for people to go to, because I don't know why they got, I think it's COVID why they got rid of them originally, right? But they're a great experience, and it's just, I think it's something everyone should have a chance to do, because you learn so much, you meet so many new people, and you kind of learn so many new perspectives on how people live in other places of the world. So that's all I have to say, but thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
I know you guys might be pressed for time. Do we have a couple minutes?
Yeah, a couple.
In addition to all of the amazing things that they both shared, I had my own wonderful experiences just visiting these two countries. But I think for me, one of the most impactful things was going as their former 6th grade science teacher and not having worked or interacted with them, some of them, in 6 years. And being able to go and have this shared experience with them was really incredible. And interacting with them as, not even young adults anymore, I don't know, just seeing the people that they had become and talking about plans for next year with the seniors and juniors and what they were interested in, and that part just filled my heart in a way that I wasn't anticipating. And yeah, okay, I won't cry, but it was very, that part was very powerful. So in addition to all of the other beautiful and amazing things that we got to see there, for me, that's a big takeaway. So thank you. And thank you to the kids. I mean, like Cam was saying, they had time to go around and they would just come back. You said 4:30. They were there at 4:30, and they worked together to figure things out and problem solve, and it was really wonderful to watch, and just made me very, very proud, as all of their family should be very proud.
Nice.
So, thank you.
That's great. Thank you.
So, I mean, from their words, I can't say any more. That's why we do those trips, and that's why we're going to keep trying to do them. And we really appreciate your support as we forge ahead and try to do other locations. So we know next year they're looking at London and Paris, and then we're looking at the Highlands of Scotland in 2027. And then trying to get more people on board to do other destinations and other trips. And then we had talked about doing in-country, do national parks. The prices are starting to go up, so we're like, maybe in the future we'll shoot to do more domestic, but the other part of the country. So, but again, thank you. It was a great experience. And thanks, guys, for going.
Mark, I do have one question. Well,
Yeah.
First, thank you and Allison for being chaperones and everyone else, and thank you for restarting these trips several years ago. I remember when you came to the front of the board and I presented them, so it's great that they're going so well. I was wondering if you could kind of explain to the board members and probably the 2 people at home watching, like how affiliated this is with the school or not affiliated, and that the board isn't approving it, because we've had some confusions in the past, and it might be useful to clarify that.
There's a couple of different ways that these trips are supported. It's like, we come to you, say, this is what we'd like to do, and you're like, hey, we like that. It kind of fits with our messaging, what we want kids to do, and we'll give you the space and, the facility to help, make that happen. And so that, we can use email services to contact parents. We can use the library media center for offices, for meetings. Versus it's a school function type trip. Like, we just got back from a trip to York, and it was all school function, totally all those parameters you have to go through. So it's not that connected, and so there's a lot of responsibility on me, not as much as on the board or the district. So yeah, there is a slight difference there with these trips.
You're kind of like an employee of EF Tours when you
Yeah.
function.
Yeah.
While
I saw the
you're
swag
facilitating
on the
it
picture.
within the school, but you're working to bring an EF tour to our kids, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, and yeah, for people that were like, well, what kind of trip it is, yeah, it's not a full-on, school trip. It's more of, we get to use the building to kind of facilitate.
But I mean, it speaks too, to me, to how much more you're personally taking on to make this happen.
Yep.
Yeah, any of us that do, it is a lot. I won't mince words on that. It's a lot. But what makes it worth it? Those words.
It was clearly very rewarding,
Yeah.
a very enriching experience.
Yeah, and that's what it's worth. I was totally nervous the whole time, and when I got home, I'm like, so, yeah.
It looked like the weight of the world came off your shoulders when you stepped off of that bus in Portsmouth.
Later on, when we have more time in one-to-one, I'll tell you some of the sort of travel tricks.
I don't
They
know.
didn't know.
Maybe you should take those to your grave. But no, the bus was a tremendous idea, I think, because I had the benefit of last year when the kids came out of customs in Terminal E. They how hostages look when you obtain their release. It was a lot of that 1,000-mile stare, and this year certainly everybody seemed more energetic.
Yeah, oh, yeah. Thanks
Thank
again,
you so
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Anytime. Just close that, should shut that off. Hey, look at that, it works. Good, thanks, guys.
Squeeze in Chris and Jason, because it looks like not all the kids.
Yes, we'll move the top 10 down. One more agenda item. I promise we will get to you as soon as we have more folks here. So next up on the agenda, if we could have Jason Carey and Chris Reeves come and explain to us how we're going to have online enrollment next year.
All right. Can you hear me all right? Yep, sounds good.
Yes.
So yeah, we're here to talk about, I'm sure you're equally excited, to learn about our student information system annual updates. So we've been doing online registration for, I think, 5 years now. Very basic, only for new students. And the rest of the process, where we're updating demographics, emergency contacts, et cetera, is done over paper packets. They got to go home at the beginning of the year. Hopefully they come back. Someone's going to manually enter that stuff. So it's a lot of work. I'm going to hand it over to Chris Reeves. He's our IT and data system specialist. Chris has been here about a year. I figure some of you up there may have met him, but been a great addition to the district. He's learned really a brand new role here, which is a lot involved, and handled several major projects for us that we kept throwing at him. As far as I know, he's still coming back next year. Seems to be having fun. But he's done, I helped keep the project moving, but he's done all the heavy lifting, the not so fun stuff on the back end. So I'll let him speak to that a little more.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, and just briefly, thank you to everyone in the district. It's been an extremely positive, welcoming experience. Everyone's been very gracious and helpful and understanding that I'm new and still trying to learn how things are done here. So I appreciate that. So as Jason was saying, the annual update was done through paper previous years. The junior high school used Google Form this year, but our elementary was still doing some paper and just had different procedures. We're trying to standardize. The annual update process can be time-consuming for parents to kind of take care of all that stuff, saying that as a parent of a child in another district as well. But it's time-consuming for us too, getting it all together, getting them out, collecting them, hounding people who don't have them, and then just data entry after that. So we really wanted to try and get away from all of that. So for the 25-26 year, we're excited that we will be able to move the annual updates in addition to new student to the online platform. And so it's going to be faster for parents. A lot of what they'll be seeing is, oh, this is correct. Yes, next. Yep, that's still my address. That's still my phone, rather than to have to handwrite things in to confirm what's going on. This annual update is mobile friendly. Parents will be able to do it right from their phone. We have the option to have them attach uploads of various documents that we might also need. They can do that, again, take a picture with their phone, put that right into the application, so that should make things a lot easier. And one of the drivers behind this was trying to add a proof of residency piece, and so parents will be able to say, yep, I'm uploading, here's my utility bill, or no, I'm going to bring it into the school, and we'll know right away which option they've chosen. So that's going to be nice. This is going to remove most of our paper elements. The nurse will still require a couple of signed forms for medical reasons. What's nice about this is that we can standardize what we are collecting across the schools. Everyone's going to be required to give an emergency contact. We'll have that. We'll be able to force that through the application. So that'll be nice. We're asking everyone to review. This is all of the medical information we have. Are these conditions accurate? But what's nice too is that we can build in some grade level distinctions. So we can ask only parents updating seventh graders to give us updated immunization. We can do things like show the elementary handbook to just the elementary school students and vice versa. Let's see here. The other part that I'm pretty excited about is as parents submit their annual update, we'll be able to send notifications to relevant internal staff notifying them of important details that are maybe atypical. So if we have a homelessness situation, we can contact our homeless liaisons immediately. If a parent needs some help filling out free and reduced lunch paperwork, the SAU office will be notified right when that parent submits so that we can get that assistance in play quickly. Processing-wise, this should be faster on our end. We don't have to really do a lot as far as Infinite Campus will tell us, like, that's the same, it's okay, or hey, you just need to review this. So the processing is going to be much faster. There's less opportunity for error with just simple data entry, looking at a form and trying to type that information in. We're going to be able to send reminders to our families on a regular basis. Hey, can you please get this done? We'll be able to remind them, we'll know in real time. We can run reports even before the full window is closed to collect information for anything that we might need internally. Say we took pictures on the second day and we still weren't finished, we could find out, of the people who've submitted who doesn't want their child to appear on our website. We can do that before the process even finishes. As far as the timeline, we've already begun contacting any parent who does not currently have an account and giving them directions on how to create the account. I'd like to meet with building staff one more time just to make sure, go through the process, make sure that there's nothing that we've missed. Come July, we're looking to mid-July or so launch the annual update. We'll send notifications out to families with instructions on how to complete that. And we're just going to make sure that we stress the importance of accuracy of information, check that, make sure it's okay, it's good to go. Parents will also be able to make some customization on their contact preferences. Emergencies, we'll be contacting anything that we have on file, but maybe I want a text only if there's a snow call. I don't want a phone call. We'll be able to make those changes there. And let's see here. After the rush is all done, I'd like to just go through and determine some improvements and refinements for the following year. And let's see here. And then just one more note. We should have computers at the physical location of each school so that if a parent needs some help filling this out, can't for some reason, doesn't have the technology, just needs assistance, that they could go in and fill it out there with help. Try to be quick. I hope you guys could follow. Any questions that you guys have?
I was going to ask about people who didn't have technology, so it's great to hear you've done that. Having just filled out, I think, hopefully the last field trip permission slip and written medical information about 50 times over the course of the year, is that something that we're going to be able to include in online forms?
So I have to check on whether we have that second module, but there is a capability, if we have it, where we could do things like field trip forms, so that'd be something we could look into.
It's a great advancement. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's like the best news I've heard all day. The forms at the beginning of the school year. I mean, they come home with 10 of them, and by the end, I don't even know my name, let alone my kid's name.
They are painful. They're necessary, but they're painful.
Yeah. Great.
Anything else?
Having a guy named Chris Reeves come to us and not make a Superman reference, I think he has been our Superman guy getting this IC up and updates up and running. He has taken this from beginning to end and just been very detail-oriented, checking in with people, so I really appreciate all the work on this, Chris. Obviously, community will start to learn about it as it's rolled out slowly, but it seems kind of boring on one thing, but it is a major step forward for us as an organization. And the residency confirmation, one of the things we realize is we literally have families who will sign up for their kid in like kindergarten, and we verify residency again for their whole time. And this is a way to make sure that we are able to do that, and that's an important thing as a public school. Yeah.
I do have a question. The information that's collected through these systems, do you know where that data ends up living? Is it on our own hardware? Is it somewhere that it's hosted? Is it encrypted at rest? I assume probably, since it's that kind of stuff. But
yeah, so we are cloud hosted through Infinite Campus, and then they use I think it's Amazon Web Services. Everything should be encrypted, through that capacity. One of the conversations we're going to be having this summer after your fun thing with the policies are just data retention, destruction of data that is past certain dates and things like that.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions for Jason and Chris? Thank you so much.
Again, thank you. You guys have a great district here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I am informed that we have all 10 of our top 10 graduating seniors have arrived. So, Andy, if you'd be so good as to do the introductions.
They all look so happy.
They had had a very busy day, most of them, and the weather's not helping them out. So we have our top 10 class here for the top 10 of our class of 2025. Extremely proud of these young men and women here. They start with us in kindergarten, and it is that what I, in my head, term the Newmarket moment, and we give them that diploma in center stage with the logo behind it. And these folks tonight are the absolute best and brightest that we have to offer. And they have done exceptional work over their careers here in Newmarket. Whenever they've started, they're all going to end in a matter of 2 weeks, guys. Very exciting. We went out to lunch with them yesterday. They are a very fun group of folks. I'm going to give them the opportunity to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves and anything else that they want to share. So in no particular order, who wants to go first? They all stare at their shoes. Come on up, Caleb.
Hello, my name is Caleb Biarcides. As Mr. Coleman said, I've been here all my life, pretty much. I have been interested in engineering for just about as long as I've lived, and after I graduate here, I'm going to be going to an internship in Exeter. I'm going to be working 30 to 40 hours a week until summer vacation ends, and I will be at Northeastern University in their New York campus, majoring in civil engineering.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Next.
All right.
So there's 10 of you, you have to all go someone's back.
So I'm Melcado Swanson, and next year I'm going to be going to University of Maryland, College Park, and I've enjoyed my time here. Been here for 3 years during high school, and I've made a lot of memories and enjoyed playing sports in the small community, and excited to bring that to me next year, and wish everyone the best of luck, and congrats to everyone else here. So, thank you.
I'm Richard Horner. I've been here since 2nd grade, and I plan on studying environmental engineering next year at CU Boulder, kind of far away. My mom's kind of mad, but I love playing sports here. I love running cross country, track, playing basketball, and I'm excited to see where all the underclassmen and all my friends go next year, and wish them best of luck for the future.
Hi, I'm Elise. Next year I'm going to Union College to study neuroscience, and I've really enjoyed my time here. Being in a small community has allowed me to join multiple clubs. I'm president of Honor Society and Interact Club, and part of a bunch of other clubs as well. And yeah, the teacher relationships that I've been able to build here has been really amazing, and yeah, I'm lucky to be a part of this school district, so thank you.
My name is Dillian Long. I'm going to Hudson University in Maine, where I'm going to be studying occupational therapy. And I've had the privilege to play soccer and basketball for Newmarket since 6th grade all the way through my senior year. And I'm going to be playing Hudson at soccer too.
Hi, I'm Natalie Nice, and I'm planning to go to Emmanuel College for nursing. I've been here my whole life. I really like the school and the teachers, and I like the opportunity of SST. I like that one.
Hi, my name's Amelia Rabb. I'm going to University of Vermont next year for nursing. I, same as Natalie, really enjoyed the opportunity of SST. I think that's helped me out a lot. I've been here since 1st grade, and I've played soccer all through that, and I've done track the last 3 years, and I've loved all of the people that I've met here and all of the teachers and the friends that I've made.
Hi, my name is Anna Gray. I'm going to UNH in the fall for nursing. I really like Newmarket. I like how small it is and how close the community is. Like Natalie and Amelia, I was also at SST the past 2 years. Me and Natalie just passed our LNA exam on Tuesday, which is really exciting. So yeah, I really like it here though.
That's great.
Hi, my name is Maya Burns. I'm going to be studying psychology at Suffolk University next year. I'm in a lot of clubs here. I'm in Model UN, Student Council, National Honor Society, National English Honor Society. So I've really enjoyed being involved in the school. And I'm also in the Careers and Education program at SST, which I've really enjoyed. Thank you.
I'm Colin Ellis. I've been in the school system here K through 12, and I'm planning to go to Hamilton College. Almost certainly studying chemistry.
So as you can see, we have quite a broad range of interests and aspirations here. Again, this is a phenomenal group of students. Very excited for the next 2 weeks for them to get them all to the Newmarket moment. Thank you guys so much. Again, I know you've had a very long day, but thank you and congratulations one more time.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that speech practice? A little bit of speech practice? Or practicing at home?
Olivia, if you need to go as well.
Wait, but is this the last? Is this your last movie?
Oh, no. I was too busy getting
So will you be back on the 5th?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, and now to this considerably less full room.
Was it something they said?
It's a very tough act to follow, Jana, but can you just give us a quick overview of...
Like 5 or 6 items are all you, Jana.
Yeah, just take it away.
Well, I was just going to say, why don't we just set this aside and let's all do that trip? If anyone minds, let's just go do that instead. Thank you very much. I apologize for front-loading so much of this information. Like you said, it's not particularly gripping or exciting, especially following all of that, but I think it's important, and we have certainly some days ahead where we need to really start planning. As Todd's talked about before, we're finishing up one budget cycle, we're about to start another budget cycle, and we're already planning for the one beyond that. So we're kind of living in 3 places right now, and so to try and make things a little bit smoother, I'll start with the reports that pertain to the cycle that we're ending now, and then we'll kind of move forward to kind of work through it together. So the first thing is the interim financial report. As you know, I presented the quarterlies to you a couple meetings ago. This is really just 1 month more further down the road. But one of the things that I tried to do with this report, that just to give you a heads up of how things are going to go, I did my very, very best to try and predict based on where we're at with our expenditures, what I anticipate for our revenues, to try and estimate into that final number of what we think we will have left from our expenditure, our appropriations budget. Keep in mind, that's just talking expenditures and revenues. There are always accounting adjustments that happen as part of our audit. There are some inter-fund transactions that happen. We fund capital reserves after these numbers are set. And then finally, retained fund balance, which we'll talk about a little bit later, comes out after this. But this kind of gives you a sense of where we are coming in throughout the year. So I'll jump right to, I know we have a very full docket, so I'll jump to kind of like the highlights, and then certainly if you have questions, please let me know. So after looking at all of the figures that we're anticipating, as of the end of April, we have a positive variance on our appropriations budget of just over $804,000, which means that that's like 2.94% of our budget left. It's not a lot. So we also have to, when we talk about where we end at the end of the year in the fund balance, we also have to take the revenues into consideration. So if you consider that 804, and then you consider what we started out the year with our planned revenues and any additional ones that came in on top of that, those additional revenues also factor in. So I've given you the detail of it, and certainly if you have questions, let me know. But the Cliff Notes version is that as of the end of April, we are estimating that our general fund estimated balances, which will include unexpended expenditures and any additional revenues beyond what we budgeted, will be about $973,000. So that can change. We still have 2 months beyond that. I hope to come back to you next month with the 1 month closer, getting a little bit narrower. But we presented it to you this way just so that it gives you some time to think about options, right? Because our goal always as a school district, and keeping in mind the tax impact on people, is to keep things fairly level, right? So you don't want to have 1 year where you wind up turning back a huge number of funds that greatly reduce a tax rate to just automatically look like the next year, if you can't keep that same trajectory, you have a tax increase in the following year. So our goal with all of the capital improvement planning we do, with all of the budgeting, setting aside capital reserve funds for contingencies, is to keep things, ask for only what we need, expend only what we need, and return a certain amount. We have to kind of at the end of the year, or you never can run down to zero, but to try and keep that amount fairly level, so that the impact on the tax rate is not too high or too low. So that's kind of the Cliff Notes versions of where we're coming in. Obviously, I've given you information on the variances to kind of explain how I've arrived at those numbers. I've shared with you my assumptions about where I think the additional revenues are coming. So I'm not going to go through that detail with you. You have it in the packet. But does anyone have any questions for me about that?
Can you just remind us, so on warrants from election before last, what did we say we were going to fund out of remaining year-end fund balance?
You're not talking the ones from this year, but the prior year?
Well, so of the 972, what did we say in warrants that we were going to fund from that?
Out of that 972, we're hoping to have $200,000 to fund the capital reserve warrant article, which was we wanted to take the fund balance, and $65,000 for special ed. So those are the two things that we want to fund. So when you look at that 972, you're going to take that in your head, take that number off, because we definitely want to fund those two warrant articles.
Okay.
And then the other factor that comes in, and like I said, we'll get to it a little bit further, it's the retained fund balance. So we retain a certain amount. We didn't use it this year. It's a contingency fund. So the first step is we return that, and then we determine what we're going to retain for the next year, and then we would take an amount back. So typically, if you retain the same amount, it might go up. The delta is what you would take from that balance. What you give back less what you take, or vice versa. So the variance is what you would have left, not the full amount.
And when you say retain the same amount, you're talking in percentage terms?
Percentages, right,
Okay.
yeah, because that
'Cause-
varies based on the net assessment, net
And
assessment.
last year, we retained 3.5%, correct?
Yeah, we retained about $767,000 last year, and it was 3.5%. Keep in mind, that changes based on what your net assessment is.
Right.
Any other questions?
Not so much a question, but maybe food for thought for a future meeting. We know we have some rough years ahead of us, and we don't want to obviously cycle up and down too much in how much we return, as you pointed out. But is there any, I'm going to use an incorrect term, but is there any front loading, anything we can fund this year, and so it would have to be a purchase of some sort to kind of offset future years' budgets, so we can kind of reduce the pain next year a little bit, the year after?
Yeah, actually, if you'll hold off on that, I do have something to present to you tonight that I've called it basically health insurance cost variances, because that's the piece that we knew. But when we get to that part, we can kind of talk about some options of what you might be able to consider doing if you wanted to look at some things like that.
Thank you.
If that's all right. I'll do that one
Yeah,
last.
absolutely.
Anything else from anybody?
Not related to this, I'll just mention for anybody who's following along. So we did sort of skip over discussion points 4 and 5 on the capital with reserve withdrawals, but we've talked about those in the past, so
And
unless...
those are the subject of what was the public hearing.
Correct. So unless somebody has a specific question or comment on those, I'm happy to just keep moving forward.
I'd say we keep moving.
Yeah, and if anyone has any questions at home, we did present a memo that talks about those two, the purposes of those two things in the, I think it was the April 22nd.
It's in this agenda,
No,
too.
great,
If anybody's
okay,
looking at
perfect.
tonight's,
Yeah, so it
the
explains a
documents are
little
there.
more detail about the public hearing.
All right, so I think you're coming right along.
Okay.
Recommended fund balance, how much we should retain.
Okay. So again, this is entirely discretionary. It's at the pleasure of the board. What we retain, it is your decision. What I am going to attempt to do tonight, hopefully, is to kind of present to you our best estimate of where we think we ought to go based on what we're going to have left, kind of put the rationale behind it, the reasons behind it. Ultimately, you don't have to go with our recommendation. You can choose a different number, a higher or lower percentage, and you don't have to make a decision on that tonight. Just ask that, in fact, I might advocate that you wait a little bit till we get some more financial information a little bit later, but just to give you food for thought, like if things held the way I'm talking about tonight, this would be a recommendation that we would talk about. So basically, it's a calculation, very standard calculation Department of Revenue has us do, and it basically takes the prior year's net assessment, which is, the local piece, less the prior year education grant, think adequacy and SWEPT combined, and then you come down to a number. Of that number, the board can choose to retain. Newmarket voted back in March of 2022. They give the board the discretion to retain up to 5% of that net assessed value as a contingency fund. A contingency fund doesn't mean mad money. It doesn't mean, unfortunately, the trip to Ireland and Scotland, which I would love to do. But what it means is that if we had some unanticipated expenditures that we hadn't accounted for in our budgeting process, that we would have funding available to the board and the district to use. It still would have to come before the public. The board would still have to vote on it. There's a process to do it. It's not that the administration can decide to do it. But what it does is it prevents us from having to go back to the legislative body in the middle of a budget cycle and say, hey, you know what? We had this thing that happened and we need to ask you to immediately pay some more money in on your tax rate. Because obviously that doesn't benefit the residents. People can't plan for that. It's just not a scenario that we want to do. So this is kind of one of the protective measures to allow us to have some levers to pull when the unanticipated happens, if it's happens and it's impactful, right? So looking at that, calculating it out, I tried to give you a range, to give you an idea of what a 5% retention would be down to a 2.5%. So as Todd alluded to, this year we retained 3.5%. The amount was $767,157. That's based off of last year's calculation. If you were to retain the full 5%, that amount would go up to $1,142,457. Or if you chose to go the lesser amount, I presented the 2.5% option, which is a much lower amount. It would go down to $571,228. So basically, there are a couple things to think about when you're trying to determine what's the right number. What we've recommended, and I'll give you the reasons for it after, but what we've kind of recommended is taking a look at our projected financial position, assuming that the information that I've just presented in the interim financial statements of having about $973,000 left hold. Again, we would take the $200,000 warrant article off, we'd take the $65,000 off of that, we would return the $767,000 from the contingency we didn't do, and then we would withhold the next, our recommendation. Given the fact, after taking all that in and calculating that in, our recommendation is to increase the contingency fund from 3.5 to 4%. It would be a slight increase from what we have right now. It would go from 767 up to 914,000, 965 to be precise. It represents a 0.5% point increase in the retained fund balance. And I'm not minimizing the amount of the difference between it. It's $146,000 difference, so that would be another amount that would come off of that. But there are a couple of really good reasons that I want to share with you for that recommendation. And the first is, as you've seen in the news and as we've experienced, the economic climate, it is changing week to week, day to day. We are dealing with economic forces that we haven't encountered before as a public school district. And with all of the shifting winds and changing, meetings that happen one day and all of a sudden things change all over the place, it just feels like this might be the year that maybe we want to have a little bit of extra cushion to weather some of these unknowns and we're not alone. We're not alone in this. I mean, CEOs that are so much smarter than I am are sitting at the helm of big companies and they're trying to figure out how to plan and a little bit of extra cushion to weather with attorneys to try and mitigate what they assessed a penalty. Based on the fact they said forms weren't submitted, we have certified mail receipts that are stamped by the IRS that show that they were, but we can't seem to get past this point with the IRS of getting a hearing, getting in front of a hearing officer, sharing our information. This is the third legal group we've had involved. It just seems to keep going and going and going. And while I'm optimistic that I know that we did the right thing, I know that we did what we were supposed to, but we just don't know what the resolution's going to be. And one final little bit of salt in the wound is that after 5 years, you don't even have to retain your 1095 forms. So we are outside of that point, and we're still holding on to these forms just so we can contest this penalty for forms that we are holding on to that they say we didn't file 7 years ago. So it's a little frustrating, but if we were to be on the losing end of that argument, that's money that we haven't obviously put into our budget. So that's the other reason why I kind of recommend hanging on to a little bit more in the contingency. Hopefully, if we don't use it, the same thing will happen next year that's happening this year. We'll just return all that money back and pick a new value. And maybe next year we'll be in a better place with more stability and we can pick a different amount. But I do think that given some of the volatility right now, being a little bit more conservative with that is probably a good thing to think about. So again, what I'm recommending is we would basically return our unused contingency of $767,000. We would retain a new balance of $913,965. The difference would be a slight increase in what we would take from our fund balance of $146,808. And again, this assumes that those numbers are correct, the percentages of the contingency are correct. What may change is our balance as we get closer to the end of the year. So it's a lot. Any questions?
I guess I'll just remind the board, we're not being asked to make a decision tonight on this particular topic, so we get more than one bite at the apple, but questions?
Just a comment, I think planning ahead for these kind of contingencies right now is probably the best thing we could be doing, so I agree with you completely there.
Yeah, and we have some time to think, right? Hopefully next month I'll have some more precise information, and then certainly as we come into the end of June, it should even be better. We have a meeting in July with this board, and if we need to, we can wait until the books are closed, and we can make that recommendation at the end, as we come into the year for our audit. But I think the more information I can give to you, I don't normally do this many statements, these financial statements. We usually do quarterly, but I think coming into the end of this year, it's important for you guys to really know where we are as best I can predict it for you as early as I can. So.
And I would say, first of all, Janet, thank you, because I know you are analyzing this stuff on a daily basis and staying on top of it. Our position is actually better at this point than I would have anticipated 3 months ago. So I do feel, to be able to have these conversations and think about how we might use some of these funds, I think it's a really a good place to be. The pessimist in me thinks next year at this time we won't be in the same level of optimism.
So if it's okay, because Gary asked a really great question about what are our other options to look at. If it's okay, I'd like to
confirm that's on the record.
Okay.
I asked a really good question. I want to confirm that's on the record.
Okay.
You said I asked a good question.
You always ask good questions. But I had kind of written this up back, if you remember, we had to switch health insurance companies, and we knew right out of the gate that we were anticipating a variance of approximately $152,000 to the negative going into next year because we had to make a last minute change. So these options that I was asked to kind of look at came through that lens of how are we going to mitigate next year, that what we already know is a gap in our budget. And so some of these options are related, well, I'm presenting it in that light. These are all things that you can consider as we come into the end of the year as a strategy to achieve your goal of, mitigating the impact on tax rate, making things level, trying to be protective of going into next year. So these are just ideas. Any one of them, you can pick none of them. These are just ideas for the board to consider based on what we know. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is, and it feels like we've been talking about this window project now for a decade.
My whole career in Newmarket.
I know. But believe it or not,
My whole career on the board.
we are coming down the home stretch. The windows have been ordered. They are about to get shipped to our location. They will be installed over the summer. There's a whole plan involved, and that will conclude the window project. But we had earmarked this project as part of our capital plan, that phase 2 of it, because we had to do one phase a couple of years ago. We didn't have enough capital to do everything. This is the second phase. We had earmarked taking that from our capital reserve funds. We weren't going to use district monies for it. As we come into the end of the year, the original project, it was $255,000. We've already gotten $89,250 back from the capital reserve to offset the first payment. But that leaves $165,750 that we had earmarked to come from that capital reserve fund. If the board decides that you want to actually draw down the fund balance to come to a particular goal, whatever that may be, you could choose some or all of that money. I mean, you don't have to pick the full amount, but you could say, we would like to, instead of taking $100,000 of that from the capital reserve, we would like to use the end of year fund balance for that, leave the $100,000 in the capital reserve, and then use that $100,000 in next year's budget cycle to offset projects that we had planned in our budget. So it's kind of just shifting resources around, kind of moving it into the next year. So that's an option, and it could be you could use the whole $165,750, or you could opt to pick a smaller amount if that's what you needed to do, and just say, we're only going to partially fund it from the capital reserve. We're going to use end-of-year funds for part of it. And the reason that this works, and why this is, municipal law, you're supposed to turn money back at the end of the year, but one of the caveats is if you have an existing approved project and you have a contract in place on one side of June 30th, you can use funding to complete that project, encumbering those funds, moving them to the next year. So this kind of spans that. This is a long, well-publicized project. This is not unknown to any of you. We've been talking about this for years, so that would be one way that you might be able to mitigate the impact, as Gary said, on next year's. The second factor, it's not a huge amount of money this year, but it's something. In the past, retirement severance payments have been made in the June time frame. Our new CBA has now shifted it so that we don't have to make those payments until July. And there's a good rationale for it, because it allows us to actually calculate that, budget for it, and get it into the next year's budget. That said, we know because we're on that cusp of moving to that new time frame, we know what our severance will be for the people that are retiring. If we chose to, instead of waiting till July to take them out of next year's budget, like it's in alignment with the CBA, the board could choose to pay them 1 week early out of the June 30th balance. And that way you would free up that money that would have come out of next year. It's not a huge amount of money, but it's $16,500. So we would be able to capitalize on that in another area of the budget to offset a deficit there, or to help mitigate there.
Jane, I have a question about that one. I don't remember. Does getting the severance payment in June or July impact the staff member either way?
No, that's a really good question. We had actually done a little research as part of collective bargaining on that. Because New Hampshire Retirement has thought of that too,
yeah. Okay.
Any funding that they get within 90 days of their termination would go, for those that are eligible, counts as income. So that's a very good question, but it wouldn't impact the staff members at all. It's really just a matter of whether you pay it a week early or pay it 2 weeks later in July. So.
And we did it in June this year, so it's,
Yeah.
we do it over 3 years, right?
Some people have.
Some people,
had
yeah.
it over 3 years.
And we've done it the same in June, so.
We
did it in June, I'm sorry. We did it in June this year. For those
yes.
people who, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and just for perspective, historically, we've done it in June. This is the first year that we're moving to a new cycle, with July. So, and like I said, it's not a large sum of money, but if you're looking for options, it would be something that would be not impacting any employees. They still would get the benefit they needed just a little bit earlier. And then the final option after evaluating things, obviously we've talked about the insurance and benefits expendable trust. We have a negative delta in the next cycle. We do have $129,786.44 as of the time I wrote this memo in the insurance trust that we could the board could vote to take that money to put towards the variance in the next cycle. That's probably my least favorite of the options that I'm presenting to you, just because legislatively there still is a bill out there, Senate Bill 297, that may require, it's still going through the process, but it may require that districts establish the very same capital reserve and hold it off to the side that we already have in order to participate in pooled insurance. We're lucky we have it. Obviously, if we draw it down to solve this year's problem, we have got to then fund it in March again. So we've climbed the mountain once. Do we want to try and climb it again? Because that has to go before the legislative body. And then what happens if they, by chance, didn't vote it? Well, now how are we going to participate in the pooled insurance?
And just from my recollection, the amount that's in there right now is roughly equivalent to 4% of our liability. Yeah, it's already there. Yeah.
We're already at what the outside of what they're requiring, pretty much. So, we're very lucky. It makes us look like we knew what we were doing a couple years ago. Yay, board. But obviously nobody foresaw this type of legislation coming down the pike. At least we didn't, So those are kind of the three options I have. One thing that we cannot do, because it's not allowed in municipal law, we can't just all of a sudden say, hey, you know what? Out of the June 30th, we're going to buy all of our school supplies for next year. That is not allowed. It has to be money that has already been earmarked for a project, it's already been approved, it's in a purchase order, it's encumbered in a salary. It has to be something that existed in this year. So I would never encourage that we look at something like that, because that, while it sounds great in theory, and we may do it with our household budgets, municipal law does prohibit that.
It does seem like the most feasible of these options would be how much we remove from the capital fund for the Windows project, and what that seems to be the variable that we have the most control over. And obviously, we have a capital plan with a goal every year of putting 200,000 in it. However, we could, in our calculations, if we drew down less of it this year, we might be able to say, okay, this time we can put a warrant for 150 or 100 out and not have to obligate us to the same amount next year, as long as we are maintaining the targeted amount in that account. So that does seem like it may be the most flexible option we can, any amount.
I agree, and I think it also gives the board the latitude of time, because we know we have the money in the reserve if we needed to. So you really could make that decision in June about what you wanted to take without having us have to scurry around and get a contract or do something different. So you have the ability, it does buy you a little bit of time.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be inclined in doing one and two, and anything we can do to set ourselves up for a better situation in the future makes sense. And if there's any contracts out there you've forgotten about, or things we've said, $500 building something or other, throw those in too.
Yeah. So again, it's food for thought. I'm not asking you to make a decision on it tonight, any of those things, but just food, as you're planning the agendas in June, we probably should get these items back on the agenda so that we talk about them again, because they will require a vote of the board. And while the latest I could push it is probably into July, my preference, especially with the retained fund balance and these things that are going to require changes in the way we pay people, would be to get it on a meeting in June, maybe the second meeting in June, so that we can make sure we have adequate time to do what you would direct us to do. But does anyone have any questions on that for me?
Oh, just thank you.
I'm all set.
You make something so complicated, so understandable.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We have, as I've mentioned before, it takes a village, and we have a very strong team, and there are a lot of people involved, and Todd is my sounding board. I come in with these things and say, does that even make sense, and so we do try and, we do a lot of analysis. We try to do it because you all have other jobs, so we try to do that analysis for you and gel it down into things that make sense to us, and hopefully they make sense to you as well. So.
Thank you.
So without further ado, this is probably the one that has kept me up the most out of all of the financial things I share with you. We gave it to you in the last board packet just to look at, to give you time to digest it. But what we were asked to do is to try and take a look at what a level services budget would look like for not the coming year that we're about to start, but the year beyond that, 26, 27. So, as we mentioned, this is the budget cycle we're just starting to plan for. We really haven't even, we know what our current staffing is now. We have some budgeted staffing in next year, but we're looking out even further than that with a very dim crystal ball as to what we're going to need in 26, 27. So what our premise is, level services budget means levels of staffing like we currently have, programs like we currently have, no new programs, no changes, just basically taking what we have, costing it out for inflation or changes in changes in need that we know will come based off of what we have existing, and kind of sticking a number on it at the end of all of that. So this is very, very loose financial science here. The assumptions that I have made in here, I've tried to be as transparent as I could be with you. I've tried to share with you all of my assumptions, the percentages, the increases that I have for various things. I have done my best to come up with those, but obviously there are multiple ways to look at things, and some of those may be more conservative than the board would like, some may be less conservative. Keeping in mind, I also prepared this in April, which was before Chinese tariffs were cut from 145% back down. So some
before
of these,
they go back up again, right?
Exactly. So, some of looking at, you can only estimate this based on what you know at the time you're doing it. So I tried to break it into a couple sections for you. Our staffing is fairly well known. Keeping that the same. We did an estimate of a 4% increase for people that were not collectively bargained, because we already kind of know what our teachers are going to have, because we've already estimated those multiple years. Those have been Sanbornized as part of the vote last year. We will be negotiating with the NSSA. We anticipate that there will be some increases there too, and I've tried to estimate based on historical guesses what I think that might look like too. But the staffing is the easiest part. It's also the biggest part. Another wild card thrown into the mix is benefits. That's a big number for us. It's like $2.7 million. And given the climate and all the issues that we've had legislatively, what they're trying to do with pooled insurance and people pulling out of the state because of that legislation, and companies going bankrupt because of not handling things maybe the way that they should have. As a school district, we have some unique challenges with health insurance. And I didn't realize how unique it was. I came from private sector until we started looking at it. Most private companies do not have to guarantee insurance to their existing employees. When their employees part ways, when they retire, they can sometimes opt into the insurance, but a lot of times the insurance terminates when people leave. And so we, in New Hampshire, we are required to offer health insurance to our retirees that are not eligible yet for Medicare. So while it doesn't sound like, it's like, well, why would that be a big deal? Well, you think about the demographic of the people that are retiring but not yet eligible for Medicare. I'm getting to that place myself. Lots of times we have a lot of challenges with health, or things start to maybe have greater needs. And that demographic is pulled into your pool and is factored into your rates. In addition to that, when we take health insurance from our employees, we do it like everybody else. We can do it through payroll deduction, right? So it's very simple for us to know what people owe. We take it, we pay it to the insurance company. Well, when we don't have employees on deck anymore, when they're not here, when they don't get paid from us anymore, now we're talking private billing. We have to bill them. There are some complexities because some of them can use their New Hampshire retirement money to fund their health insurance cost. So the billing for retirees is actually quite complicated. And so these pooled insurance groups that we deal with in New Hampshire, they do that as a service for us. So while it's possible for us to exit that environment and go private market like a lot of the companies, we just are not staffed or prepared to take on that burden of that retiree billing and the follow-ups and sending invoices and all of those things. It's not to say we couldn't be, but we would need a person that we don't have now. So there are a lot of things to think about when we start talking about insurance and how we're going to manage it going down the road. I know we're going to be reinvigorating the Health Insurance Benefit Committee again. It's part of what we negotiated with the NTA. But it's going to be a very different discussion this time, because I think all of us have kind of come to the conclusion that we need to look at some options maybe outside of that pooled arena. But what will that mean for the district? I think we have a lot of work to do to figure out what that's going to mean cost-wise, labor-wise, and to really find out what is the best option for Newmarket. It may not be as simple as we're going to get the 3 pooled insurance people to come in and talk to us anymore. So I've estimated very high. I've estimated a 16% increase in that year, just because there are so many unknowns in what we're going to do.
And we had a 12.5% increase this year with
Yeah.
the changes that came our way, so it's, 16 is not that far.
Which was considered a deal.
Yeah, which was a deal for many.
Yep. And again, that could go higher. I mean, we just don't know. There's a lot of legislation also aimed at, many of you have probably heard of the GLP-1 categories of medication that help people with weight loss. It's a huge business, and it's very, very expensive. Those drugs are $1,200 to $1,500 a month per person. And right now, our insurance that we have does not cover it. But if the federal government is making moves to require some capping on that price, they're making moves to try and get it so that it's more affordable for people. If it gets to that more affordable place, there are a lot of people who have already been prescribed this medication that don't get access to it. The moment that they do, we're going to have a little bit of a variant in what we're seeing costs. So there's just a lot in that space right now. And then just looking on the operations side, for example, we're going out for a transportation contract. We've had a 5-year run with First Student. Spoiler alert, they're usually the only ones that bid, but every 5 years they get another crack at the apple, and generally things go up. I'm anticipating, based on the fact that parts are going up, lots of the electronics that they need in their buses are going to go up. Just maintenance costs are going to go up. That's going to be a pretty big increase for us this year, and it's a substantial number. So kind of, without going too, those are kind of the bigger pieces that I've looked at without going too far afield. You can look on page 6. I've kind of given you my estimate increases for those various different things. I've factored in a 20% increase for some of our special education tuition because, frankly, that's been our trend. And while we hope that we can mitigate that using some other strategies and things, right now it's very student specific, and it just, we're not alone. This is the trend. So with all that boiled down, it works out to about, if I take all of our operations and I'm kind of figuring it out, it works out to about 11.14% increase on the operations side, based on my estimates, and about a 6.24% on our labor side. And when I say the operations side, I'm counting insurance in there. So you take all that, add it on, move it forward. It boils down to overall an 8.82% increase in cost, estimated for 26-27, beyond our 25-26 budget, based on what I have here. That's an increase of over $2,500,000, which is bigger than we have ever had. And certainly that's not where we want to be. That's not what we want. It doesn't mean that that's the reality. It doesn't mean that that's what the board has to choose, but it may mean that it gives you an opportunity to kind of look at things and think about where do you think the community's heart and mind will be at that time. I know that you have a really good administrative team led by Todd, and whatever challenge you throw our way, we are going to put our heads together. We're going to figure out a way to crunch numbers and make things work. We have a creative team, a lot of good problem-solving skills. So I just don't want to feel that you're locked into this number. It's an estimate. We certainly have work to do, and we can do work to make it better. And the good part, again, is time, right? We're going to start talking about this in July, right? So the sooner we can get an idea from you about where your minds are, where you think you want to be, where you think you can't go, it will help us do our work together to come up with a plan that will be acceptable to you and hopefully to the community as well. And I did, at the bottom, just because I know that this is voodoo math, as I talked about, if you look on the bottom of page 4, I've done something called the sensitivity analysis. Because again, you can argue any one assumption I've made, right? But I said, okay, let's say I was off by 4%, and we had a 4% favorable variance better than what I've estimated. You can see what the difference will be there. It would go to like $2,035,000. But what if it was a 4% unfavorable variance? It's worse than what I predicted. Well, now we're up at $3 million. So you can kind of see what those levers are. But I think the important thing to notice is that the difference between the 4% positive and the 4% negative is still $1 million, right? So you consider if you're going one way or the other, you're talking about a $500,000 variance. So it's not going to solve, the estimate is not going to solve the issue. Like, I think we're going to have to look at creative ways, be very mindful about how we leverage things. I think we're in a great spot because we have capital reserves. We've done a tremendous amount of planning in that arena. We have a capital improvement plan that we're working very, very well. We have a facilities department that has been able to, believe it or not, since 2022, they've actually decreased their footprint 22.9% by running a new model, an innovative model. And Dave Riley works very hard at that, but there's a lot of people involved in that. So we can definitely do it. We have the ability to make some things happen, but the sooner that we can get some guidance from the board about what you need, what you're looking for.
Well, I think, as Janice is saying, there's a lot of assumptions built into this. And as she said, we use the term voodoo. I mean, it is we are way out in advance. So clearly, assumptions can change, and I think that's really what the board budget development process is about. What are the assumptions we want to bake in? Because even come November, when we're pulling the trigger on whatever we decide is the proposed budget, there's still a whole bunch of year left before it actually goes into effect, which will be the following July. So really, talking about what the assumptions are and what you would like to see our assumptions be, that is really what should drive you as you give us a goal of where you're going to start building a budget.
And it's a lot. It's a really, it's a really big number. We're not, like I said, we're not suggesting that we're not going to be able to run a school if we don't, make this happen, because that's a very big number. But I want to be honest with you and kind of estimate as best I can about the lay of the land and what we're looking at, because we have so many things that are right now outside of our control. And frankly, that's the part that's really hard. We can control our expenditures within the district to a certain extent, but if electricity goes up 35%, we still have to light the building, we still have to heat the building, and we can contain costs to a certain level. We've been very protective. We've got our capital reserves, like I said, we can weather some storm. But we just have to be realistic about where we're at and what's known, because there's so much right now that is not.
My assumptions are not in a good place. I know we don't have to make a decision right now, but I'm currently in a place where I'd be hard pressed to go all in and have a 4% increase like we've done in the past years. I mean, that's including everything that may be discussed this year. So I think there's going to be some unfortunate, very difficult decisions and some changes, and we've got a wonderful capital plan that we may have to stop funding, and which really sucks because we're trying to be so proactive and plan ahead and be good stewards of the town's money. But sometimes doing that means we have to do crappy things.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and I was spitballing a bit last week when you were away, Gary, but one of the things that as I tried to bucket some of the increase that we're looking at here, you come up with the rosiest assumptions you want to come up with about electricity and propane. That doesn't fix the problem. Throw busing in there. Rosy as assumption as you want to have about busing, you're still probably, if I remember right, 1.6, 1.7 million. I mean, there's no way to address this without looking at positions, or if you're unwilling to look at positions, there's no way you're going to come in below probably 6.25-ish, no matter how rosy you want to assume things about the physical operating cost.
Yeah, and I think you have to make the assumption that things are going to be chaotic for at least 3 years. And even if there is stability after 3 years, it's going to be a long, hard road to get back to a norm of any sort.
I tend to agree with you. I mean, there's, again, I could sit here all evening and nitpick the things that I happen to know well in this, but none of them really move the needle to a great extent. I mean, it's going to be harder. I mean, and we thought last year was fairly hard, but it's going to be harder this year, I think, the conversations in both directions, really, because absent wanting to see some really major changes to the program that we have here, the community is going to have to be probably more accepting of increases than what we've been able to hold to, or in the alternative, they won't be. And that is a decision that the voters are empowered to make, and we have to live with the consequences. But there's no easy path out of this. And, that's simply where, unfortunately, that's the job we all signed up for.
Well, just to remind, I mean, the intention of asking for the level services budget was to just give you a baseline of, okay, start someplace. Clearly, there's no magic to it, and I think really what we're looking for is by July 1, if you could say, here's the target we want you to hit. Last year, the target was 2% on the operational side, knowing that we had a teacher contract that we expected to absorb another 2%, meaning the total increase was 4%. But really just to give us that starting point. I mean, I think one of the things that, I think Janice said this last time, economists and so forth in the world are all staying away from making projections this far out because there is so much unknown. One of the advantages we have, yes, this may be a voodoo calculation, but it's a starting point. We have 5 months before we have to really start putting something to bed. And certainly we can begin to work with all kinds of assumptions. If you want to give us multiple things, hey, show us what this looks like, show us what this looks, we can do that, because I do think it's important that you as a board think things through. There's no question that it's awful hard to do anything substantially with the budget that doesn't involve the personnel. I think that's usually the hardest part when you're talking in the realm of public education. But the sooner we can know what we're working with, the more likely it is we're going to be able to come up with some creative alternative. So anyway, so I don't want you, as depressing as this is, I guess what I was just trying to say is this is simply trying to give you okay, baseline, start here, and then work from it, and you can give us anything within reason, of course, that we can work from it, and that's really what we're asking for. Give us that starting point, and we'll build it.
And
again,
you know
have to
what,
do that
we'll walk through the challenges all together, but if we're all aiming in the same place, I think we can, we have, like I said, we've got a really strong team, and we've got people that, you get the right people and the experts in their areas together, and we can do a lot, so.
Well, I mean, between dumb luck and an amazing team who's put us in the situation we're in. We're so much more fortunate than a lot of places.
We
That
really
doesn't make
are.
our decisions any easier.
No.
But thank you for the work you've done to get us where we
Yeah.
are.
We really are. I mean, that point shouldn't be lost, and I can't emphasize it enough. There are a lot of districts right now that are really going into this next budget cycle in a very, very different place than we are. You know, and as much as this is agonizing for all of us, at least we know we've put money aside for contingency. We have money aside for capital reserve. We have a plan. You know, we at least can we have levers we can pull, and there are a lot of districts right now that don't have that. Even coming into the end of this year, they're upside down with their special ed budget, and they don't have any place from which to modify it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Like I said, I wish we could just go to Scotland and Ireland, just eat this for study. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any way to, superintendent, to get the business director and the principal to go home for the night?
Yes, they're
Please.
definitely free.
It's already
Wave your
7:30.
magic wand and chase them out of the room.
They look to be having a good time. So I don't know what meeting you're at, but this is fun.
They just had a long day, I'm sure.
I know.
It's already
I know.
7:30.
And they know that
As well as you
at any point.
have had a long day.
But they can stay too if they want.
To that end, we will endeavor to expedite the rest of the agenda where we can. So in your board packet, I took my customary ham-fisted attempt at distilling the conversation that we had last week, which obviously we didn't have the benefit of Gary's input on that, but just as another point along the way to further the conversation of coming up with goals for the 25-26 year that we're about to.
Yeah, I did watch the meeting, and I pretty much agreed with all the comments that were being made.
Okay.
If that helps.
No, that's very helpful. So as people read through this, is there anything anyone feels like I missed or characterized the wrong way, or anything you want to add, or anything that just sounds stupid?
No, I appreciate your word choice.
You know, by all means, if there's things that anybody feels strongly about, let's. I
Yeah.
agree, Lonnie. I think these are good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like
Yeah,
these.
I like them. I especially like the post-graduation one, too.
Yeah, that one was one, as we discussed it, I felt like it's a bit of a gap in what we've tried to do, and we probably also need to be realistic that, you know, there's only so much you can do to, I mean, heck, it's hard to have them in here when they are students and get them to talk to us, but it seems like, to me, it's worth the effort, particularly because we do have teachers and counselors who have built some good relationships with the students to see what we can learn when.
And actually, if I could, actually, I was having a conversation with Jody Callan and Leslie Roble, our two high school counselors, and they were really excited at this idea, because they said, oh, we've got all these emails. They were like, oh, absolutely, this would be something we'd love to work on. So if the board has ideas, you have a counseling staff to be like, oh, cool, just invite us in and we'll make it happen.
Great. Goal
I did have-
number.
Oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
I did have one question.
Yeah.
At the retreat, we sort of talked about one of the goals from this year about looking at multiple forms of data for achievement, like beyond test scores. And I think we had kind of talked about, like, did we really accomplish that? Are we partway? Do we want to revisit, kind of decide what we think that means this year with this board or this next year with this board? So I just didn't know if that was something we were thinking that we needed to follow
Thank
up on.
you. I know that came up, and I mean, we could add that to the list. We could rewrite goal number 3 a little bit to encompass both things. You know,
In terms of
goal number
yeah.
3 is really about student achievement, so we can.
So we can cheer about the SAS scores?
What's that?
So we can cheer about the SAS scores when we get to see
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Well, would it be better to have a separate one for
Yeah, I think I agree with you.
K-12? Because that could almost be too general if you put it in together. And it's,
We generally try not to have too many, but I think I agree with you that
yeah,
it might be clearer.
Okay. And I mean,
And
we,
it may just be an extension of what we did last year.
right, like
Reviewing what
review
ideas
last year.
we had, yeah.
The
yeah,
fifth goal.
I said the beauty of it is we have last year's to look back on and think, what would we tweak about it? So, yeah, we can take a crack at that one. We'll work it into the list
Not to give us more
somewhere.
work, but give us more work.
But that's important, though, because everybody always just looks at this test scores, and they don't understand the different,
Right.
the wax museum.
You know, and then 1 and 4 are pretty much goals that we have just refined a little bit from what we had last year, but I think they're still important. Anything else on this topic?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, good. Handbook committee. So my first question was, which handbook?
It's the employee handbook.
Okay.
And actually, we need one board rep. It will be one meeting.
So is that in the contract?
Yes, it's in the
okay,
teacher
okay. I was
contract.
wondering where that came from. Okay.
Yes, so, and the date's already been set, right?
June 10th at 3 p.m. and it's about 1 hour.
So if we get one board member, and it's going to, the intention, keep in mind that we did a deep dive into our handbook last year. It's been fully vetted. The intent of it is to just kind of fine tune some things that, so it will be very focused. It'll be a one meeting commitment. So basically just need one person who's available on June 10th at 3 o'clock.
I can't guarantee the time, but I have one committee assignment that's should be wrapping up, and I feel like I've been slacking this year, so I'm happy to do it.
Great, and it's virtual, just so
Oh my
it's even
goodness.
better.
That makes it,
That does make
That's
it.
good.
Yeah.
I live
You could be at the
almost half
beach.
a mile from.
Yeah. So
you could put a different
there's
background.
there's already a draft of the changes, and then we're just asking people for things that they want to look at. And then we're going to just get together, and we're probably just going to be looking at the areas that are changed, because like Todd said, we did a lot of work on this last year, so it should not be a lengthy meeting, but thank you. I will
Yeah,
get
could
that
you just forward
invitation.
that to me? Thank you so much.
Yep.
Yeah. If you do this, I promise you won't have to sign manifests that week. All right, so Gary will take that on. Thank you very much. This
Typed
is
it in there, I don't know if it's saved. Just, I pulled up the document and typed Gary in there, so I don't know if it's saved or
Okay.
not.
So as expected, the Newmarket Staff Association, which is the collective bargaining unit for our paras, has given us formal notice to open negotiations. Their contract is up and needs to be redone, so I don't know if there's really much to discuss on this one, but.
Because, I mean, Lonnie and Kathy are the two negotiators. Really, all we need to do is, that you already replied to them, right?
Who, me?
No, I'm talking to Dan. You are-
Yeah,
so Dan's already
I wrote
replied.
back and just
So we had-
acknowledged.
So they're looking to set up an organizational meeting in June to kind of start the process. So really, maybe it's just a conversation between the three of us and Jana to sort of figure out when would be a good time to propose. So maybe we can communicate via email about that.
All right. So now to the real meat of the agenda. Tell us about cheer mats.
This should be quick. We had a local school district who is in need of cheer mats. They have a thriving program, and they were looking to see if anybody would be willing to either donate and/or sell them these cheering mats. We happen to have 10 cheer mats that are stored in the locker room, taking up space. We haven't had a cheering program here in about 3 years at the middle school level, 5 years at the high school level. And the mats are taking up a lot of space, and we have an opportunity to either donate them to this district and say, here you go, or negotiate a price with them. If you'd like us to pursue that, we certainly can do that. And I just wanted to kind of, our policy says that when things are valued over $500, the board has to give approval on it. So I'm simply asking
I thought it said their estimated value, was that $200 per mat?
There's 10 mats at $200 a piece, yeah. So the question
Okay,
is.
there it is, I'm sorry, the 4 mats, my particular machine's wonky, but I see it now, thank you.
You don't think you could convince them to pay $2.5 million, do you?
That could be our starting offer.
So do you not name the district?
I was not going to
Okay.
name the district, but would you like me to name the district?
Well,
I can name the district, would you like?
because I can give you, no, I can give you a little background information.
So it is the Franklin.
Franklin School District, of which there is, like, cheerleading is their life.
Okay.
Right from wherever. It's one of the great things that they have there. And I know the athletic director, his whole life is the kids, and he born, brought up, and he redid the gym up there because they don't even have money for gym, so they did the old 1938 gym, and he redid it all, and now they're playing basketball games back in the gym again. So if so be it.
I'd be certainly happy to donate them, provided that they come pick it up.
Yeah.
because of gas prices.
That would be the deal. They would have
Yeah.
to, if we donated them, we'd say, you rent a truck, come out and get them and take them.
Yeah, I'd super be inclined to donate.
Works for me.
So that later on you can vote on
Yep.
it. That's all good, okay.
All right, do we have any donations to acknowledge this week? We do not, all right.
Do you have to make a motion on that?
We
for
will.
the- Oh, okay,
We-
all right, all right.
All right, so moving into action items. First is the minutes from our May 8th, 2025 meeting. Did anyone observe any, or actually first, I'd accept a motion to approve the minutes from the May 8th, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Gary.
Seconded.
Thank you, Jeff. Did anyone see anything that they'd like changed, edits, clarifications?
No, this looks good.
All right, all those in favor of approving the minutes from May 8th, 2025, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
One abstention. 4-0 and 1. Thank you, everyone. Do we have a manifest?
It's me. Phil, I hope you're watching. All right. I move to approve the manifest in the amount of $1,212,539.10.
Second.
Thank you, Lonnie. Thank you, Gary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're unanimous. I would accept a motion to approve the expenditure of funds from the School Technology Expendable Trust Fund, as we discussed in the public hearing earlier this evening.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Gary.
7:35, right?
You gotta get out.
It's almost 8 o'clock. Close.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are unanimous. I would accept a motion to approve the expenditure of funds from the School Repair and Maintenance Trust Fund, again, as we discussed earlier this evening in the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Lonnie.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are unanimous on that one. So do people feel like, are we ready to approve the school board goals tonight, or should we push this one more meeting so we can make that edit as far as the goal on?
I'm comfortable approving them with the edit in mind.
Okay.
Same.
Sure. Yeah.
Then I would accept a motion to that effect.
And I'll so move.
Thank you, Kathy.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're unanimous.
I move we donate the 10 chair, or five chair mats?
10.
10 chair mats to the Franklin School District.
Thank you, Gary.
with
And
no
I will
charge.
gladly approve. I mean, second.
Thank you, Kathy. Now you get to approve. Any discussion? Again, thanks for bringing that opportunity to us. If they're just
Yes.
taking up space here, then and somebody can make use of them, that's great. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? We're unanimous. Last action item, we have a nominee to be JV girls soccer coach. Todd, you want to
And
quickly?
just to mention, Nicole has been our middle school soccer coach, and it's an opportunity for her to kind of step up into a higher level. And so she's been our middle school coach for, I think, 7 years. So she's well known.
That's great.
Wow. All right, I'd accept a motion to approve Nicole Sanborn as our JV girls soccer coach.
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff.
Second.
Thank you, Lonnie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, for discussion, I'm sorry. I forgot, I was asked to check to see if if we've had any movement on the middle school, or if we're worried about having the same kind of issue we had last year, as far as coaches for the boys.
That's a good, I'll have to talk to Jamie. Some varsity coaches are harder to come by, no question about it.
But aye, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. All right. At the end, I believe we are going to enter into non-public under RS.
Actually, don't need as far as I'm concerned right now.
Okay, very well. We will scratch the non-public that we were planning for this evening. And in that case, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you, Gary. Just for my notes, let me make sure I know who did what. Thank you, Jeff, for the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.